Thanks for having me today. I was just kind of reflecting back. I've been in the mobility business for about 20 years, deploying field forces for the organization that Larry worked for, GSA, basically in all the government buildings. And I just think how far things have come. Before, they barely had fax machines when I first got into the business, but we would deploy field techs all around the world, and it was just hard. And I remember about 8 or 9 years ago, I was looking into some mobile solutions, and they were really prohibitively expensive. They were just crazy. It just was unaffordable. So I really look back. I was getting ready to leave that company that I was an owner of, and I was going to start a new company. I was starting to look at mobility. And it was April 3rd, 2010, for me, was the big day that I could tell mobility was going to hit. It's when the iPad came out. So the iPad is basically 3 years old, just a little bit more than 3 years old. So I ended up going in, starting my company, MobileGov, and actually worked for the University of Central Florida as well. And I was looking around the government space, and I was like thinking maybe I'll do some mobile apps and do some really cool things out in the field. And looking at, of course, at Appian. And the problem was in the federal landscape is how do I connect an iPad to the network when I'm not allowed to? It's kind of hard to do some innovative apps when you can't connect your mobile phone to the network. So I worked with an organization called IAC, and it's the Industry Advisory Council, American Council for Technology, and it's a good organization. It brings government and industry together. We started a little adventure, the mobility group, and I'm teamed with Rick Holgate, who's the CIO of the ATF, very early innovator in mobility. And we got government people together, industry, and we're starting to work on solving some of the problems in mobility, especially in security, mobile device management. And it led to May 23rd of last year, the Digital Government Strategy, which is a presidential memorandum on mobility. And they've had a series of deliverables this last year. And May 23rd is the anniversary. And it's not too much about doing your work out in the field and doing your jobs, but they did have a couple of systems. Every agency had to identify a couple of internal systems that they would mobilize their applications. So I really look at it's coming. I think that once this is at the end of this year and maybe toward the end of the fiscal year, a lot of these security, HIPAA, we're going to talk a little bit about HIPAA. We're going to talk a little bit about personally identifiable information. There are solutions out there to solve that problem. To get to the really interesting part, I think, is applications. And that's why a lot of you folks are here today. So without further ado, we'll go into, Raj has a little presentation. Just a point of order. We're going to go in 6 or 7 minutes each for each of these folks to talk a little bit about what they're doing. And then we're going to open it up to questions. We definitely want to make this an interactive back and forth, give and take. So get ready for that. So anyway, without further ado, Raj.